In 1992, Dale Hoffman sat in his Peterbilt idling at the Texaco, off Route 287, 18-wheeler, loaded with machine parts bound for Dallas. 20 minutes later, he climbed back into his cab, pulled out of the lot, and vanished. No accident, no wreckage, no body. The insurance company paid out $700,000 after 8 months of searching. His wife, Linda, was told he'd probably run off to start a new life. Small-town gossip said there was another woman. His daughter, Emma, grew up believing her father abandoned them. Then, in October 2012, Garrison Quarry started draining for industrial expansion. 30 feet down in the murk, construction crews found a 1987 Peterbilt perfectly preserved in the airless water, Dale still strapped in the driver's seat. The medical examiner found the bullet hole almost by accident. Small caliber, back of the skull, hidden under 20 years of silt. But it was the receipt in Dale's jacket that changed everything. 2 coffees, 2 sandwiches, time stamped 11:47 p.m. Dale never bought 2 of anything. Someone else had been in that truck. Someone who knew exactly which quarry hadn't been used since 1978. Someone who could wait 20 years for their perfect crime to surface. Emma Hoffman was sorting through paint samples at Morrison's Hardware when her phone rang. Unknown number, local area code. She almost didn't answer, probably another sales call, but something made her thumb hit accept. Emma Hoffman? Speaking. This is Sheriff Tom Garrett. I need you to sit down. She laughed, sharp and wrong. I'm at work. What's... We found your father. The paint samples slipped from her hand. Cerulean blue, desert sand, rust red. They fanned across the linoleum like playing cards. 20 years of learning to say, my father left when I was 8, without flinching. 20 years of practiced indifference, gone in 4 words. That's not possible. His truck was in Garrison Quarry, the one they're draining for the new industrial... No, the word came out flat. My father drove away. November 8th, 1992. He left us. Ma'am, I need you to come to the medical examiner's office. Your mother? Is Linda Brennan still your mother? Linda Hayes now. She remarried. Emma's legs weren't working right. She sat on a paint can. You're wrong. He left. The insurance company said, please, come to the county building. Your mother's already on her way. Emma drove the 12 miles on autopilot. The county building squatted on Main Street like it always had, brown brick and small windows. She'd been here once before, 16 years old, drunk driving charge that got pled down to reckless operation. Different sheriff then. Old man Garrett had been a deputy, the one who'd worked Dad's case. The medical examiner's office was in the basement. Fluorescent lights hummed. Everything smelled like industrial disinfectant, fighting something worse. Her mother sat in a plastic chair, still wearing her Walmart vest. Linda Hayes, at 52, looked nothing like Linda Hoffman at 32. The woman who'd waited by the phone for 3 months had been replaced by someone who'd learned not to wait for anything. Mom! Linda looked up. Her face was strange. Not sad exactly, more like confused. They're saying it's Dale. It can't be. Sheriff Garrett came through a side door. He was older now, belly straining his uniform, but Emma remembered him from Dad's case. Young deputy, eager, took notes in a little book. Mrs. Hayes, Miss Hoffman, thank you for coming. How do you know it's him? Emma heard herself ask. Dental records match. VIN number on the truck matches. His wallet was in his pocket. Garrett sat across from them, hands folded. The truck was 30 feet down, perfectly preserved in the quarry water. Airless environment prevented decomposition of most materials. I don't understand. Linda's voice was small. He left us. The insurance investigator said he probably went to Mexico. There was that woman in Amarillo. There was never any woman in Amarillo, Emma snapped. 20 years of defending him, even when she hated him for leaving. That was just gossip. The medical examiner found something. Garrett pulled out a folder. This is going to be difficult to hear. Emma's chest went tight. Your father didn't leave. He was murdered. The fluorescent lights buzzed louder. Or maybe that was in Emma's head. Small caliber gunshot wound to the back of the skull, likely a .22. The angle suggests he was sitting when shot. He was dead before the truck entered the water. Linda made a sound, not quite a sob, not quite a laugh. But the insurance money. They said he ran off. We had to use it for the house, for Emma's college. The case is being reopened as a homicide. Emma stood up, sat down, stood up again. I need to see him. That's not advisable. 20 years underwater? I need to see him. Garrett looked at Linda, who nodded slowly. He led them down a hallway that got colder with each step. The morgue door was heavy steel. Inside, everything was stainless steel and white tile. 3 tables. One occupied, covered with a blue sheet. The medical examiner was a young woman, looked fresh out of school. Family? His wife, daughter. She pulled back the sheet partially. Just the face. Emma had expected horror, decomposition, a skull. But the cold water had done something strange, mummified him almost. His face was leather and bone, but recognizable. The mustache he'd refused to shave despite Mom begging. The scar on his chin from a loading dock accident. That's Dale, Linda whispered. Emma touched the table edge. Cold metal. Real. This was real. Her father hadn't chosen to leave, hadn't picked freedom over family. Someone had taken that choice away. There's something else, the medical examiner said. She held up an evidence bag. Inside was a receipt, laminated by time and water. This was in his shirt pocket, from the Texaco on Route 287, November 8th, 11:47 p.m. Emma could read it through the plastic. 2 coffees, 2 sandwiches, $8.47. Dad never ate 2 sandwiches, she said automatically. That's what we need to discuss, Sheriff Garrett said. Someone was with him that night. Someone who was supposed to be on that run, but called in sick last minute. His business partner, Carl Briggs. The name hit Emma like cold water. Uncle Carl, who'd brought Christmas presents after Dad left. Uncle Carl, who'd helped Mom with the insurance paperwork. Uncle Carl, who'd sold the trucking business 5 years later and retired to his place on Lake Buchanan. Carl said Dale was depressed, Linda said slowly. Said he'd been talking about starting over. Carl's the one who suggested I file for the insurance. We'll need to ask him some questions, Garrett said carefully. Emma looked back at her father's face. 20 years underwater. 20 years of birthdays, graduations, Christmases, her wedding, all of it thinking he'd chosen to miss them. The grief she'd processed, the anger she'd worked through in therapy, the acceptance she'd finally found, all of it built on a lie. The truck, she said suddenly. Can I see the truck? It's at the impound lot. I want to see it. The impound lot was behind the sheriff's station. Dale's Peterbilt sat in the corner, water still dripping from its undercarriage. Algae covered it like fur, green and black. The chrome was tarnished beyond saving. But it was his truck. The dent in the front bumper, from when Emma had hit it with her bike. The Georgia Bulldogs sticker in the window. Garrett opened the driver's door. The cab exhaled 20 years of lake water and silence. Emma's school photo was still taped to the dashboard, protected by plastic. 8 years old, missing her front teeth, grinning. The photo he'd looked at every day on his runs. He kept it, she said. There's more. Garrett pointed to the sleeping compartment behind the seats. His overnight bag. Clothes for a 3-day run. Nothing missing except his logbook. He always kept his logbook. Exactly, but here's the interesting thing. Garrett pulled out another evidence bag. A Texaco receipt. This was wedged under the passenger seat. Same night, same location, but different time. 10:15 p.m. 1 coffee, 1 sandwich. Paid credit card. Carl Briggs. Emma stared at the receipt. Carl was there. Appears so, but he told investigators he was homesick that night. His wife confirmed it. His wife would confirm anything, Carl said. Linda's voice had changed, gotten harder. Dolores never questioned anything. Emma touched the truck's door. Rust flaked under her fingers. He didn't leave us. No, Garrett said. He didn't. Then who's been living with this for 20 years? Who looked me in the eye at my high school graduation and said Dad would be proud? Who came to my wedding and said it was a shame Dad couldn't walk me down the aisle? Garrett didn't answer. Didn't need to. Emma looked at the photo on the dashboard again. Protected all these years in its plastic sleeve. Waiting at the bottom of a quarry. Her father had been down there looking at her 8-year-old face while she grew up hating him. I want to help, she said. Whatever you need. I want to help catch who did this. Emma, Linda started. No, Mom, 20 years. Whoever did this has been walking around for 20 years while Dad was down there. While we thought, her voice cracked. I wrote him a letter when I was 12. Told him I hated him. Mailed it to every Dale Hoffman in Texas. The sun was setting behind the impound lot fence. The truck's shadow stretched long and dark. We'll get them, Garrett said. Whoever did this, we'll get them. Emma nodded. But she was thinking about Carl Briggs, about his smile at her wedding, about the way he'd said her father would be proud, about how he'd sold the trucking business and retired early, about how he'd helped with the insurance that paid for her college. Blood money. All of it. Emma couldn't sleep. 3 days since they'd pulled Dad's truck from the quarry, and she couldn't stop seeing that receipt. 2 coffees, 2 sandwiches. She sat at her kitchen table at 3 a.m., laptop open, searching through old newspaper archives. Twin Pines Trucking announces new routes. June 1992. Local business sees record growth. August 1992. Then nothing after November. No announcement about Dale Hoffman's disappearance. Just a small item in January 1993 about Carl Briggs taking over operations. Her phone buzzed. Wayne, Dad's brother. You awake? Yeah. Can I come over? Wayne looked older than his 53 years. 20 years of defending his brother's memory had worn grooves in his face. He stood in Emma's doorway, holding a cardboard box. Couldn't sleep either, he said. Keep thinking about what I should have seen. Emma made coffee. Wayne set the box on the table. What's this? Everything I kept from Dale's. Your mom threw most of it out, but I grabbed what I could. He pulled out a trucker's log book. Not Dad's final one, that was missing, but from October 1992. Look at this. Dale's handwriting, neat and careful. Routes, times, mileage. Everything a trucker needed to track. But in the margins, different notes. Carl short again. Covered his fuel. Turned to October 15th. Emma found it. Carl asked about life insurance today. Weird question. Now, October 22nd. Carl's gambling again. Dolores called looking for him. Told her he was on a run. Emma's hands tightened on the logbook. He was covering for him. Your dad was too loyal. Always had been. We started Twin Pines together. All three of us, back in '85. But Carl never could handle money. Wayne pulled out a manila folder. I did some digging after Dale disappeared. Found these photocopies of receipts from a truck stop casino in Oklahoma. Carl's signature. Thousands of dollars. How? Buddy of mine worked there. Carl owed money to the wrong people. Wayne's jaw tightened. The kind who break fingers first, ask questions later. Did you tell the police? Tried to. They said Dale probably had debts too. Said he ran off to escape them. Wayne laughed, bitter. Dale never gambled a day in his life. Wouldn't even buy lottery tickets. Emma's phone rang. Sheriff Garrett. We need you to come in. Both you and Wayne, if he's there. I can hear him breathing. They drove separately to the station. Dawn was breaking, painting the sky the color of rust. The sheriff's office was already busy, deputies moving with purpose. Garrett led them to an interview room. A laptop sat on the table. We pulled this from the truck's sleeping compartment. It was in a waterproof case. Truckers used them for paperwork. Still worked after we dried it out. He turned the screen toward them. Your father kept records, detailed ones, spreadsheets, delivery logs, payment records, and a folder labeled Carl. Jesus, Wayne breathed. Inside were scanned, I owe us. Dozens of them. Carl Briggs owed Twin Pines Trucking $47,000. The last one was dated November 1st, 1992. There's more. Garrett clicked another file. Insurance papers. Dale had a $500,000 life insurance policy. Standard for truckers. But look at the beneficiary change form. November 5th, 1992. 3 days before Dale died. The beneficiary had been changed from Linda Hoffman to Twin Pines Trucking, LLC. That's not Dad's signature, Emma said immediately. Look at the H in Hoffman. Dad made his H's different, 2 separate lines. This is connected. We noticed. We also pulled Carl's financial records from 1992. November 15th, 7 days after Dale disappeared, Carl deposited $8,000 cash. Said it was from a cargo bonus, but the company that supposedly paid it doesn't exist. Where is Carl now? Wayne asked. Lake House. Retired there in '98 after selling the trucking business. We're heading there this afternoon. I want to come, Emma said. That's not... Please, I need to see his face when you ask him. Garrett studied her. You can observe from the car. That's all. The drive to Lake Buchanan took 2 hours. Emma followed the sheriff's cruiser, Wayne beside her. Neither spoke much. The hills rolled by, scrub brush and cedar, the same landscape Dad would have driven through hundreds of times. Carl's lake house sat on a prime lot, all glass and stone. A new boat bobbed at the private dock. Money everywhere. 20 years of spending what he'd taken. Emma parked where Garrett indicated, far enough back but with a clear view. She watched the sheriff and 2 deputies approach the door. Carl answered, older, heavier, but still the same Uncle Carl who'd taught her to fish. He was smiling, shaking Garrett's hand, playing the friendly retiree. Then Garrett must have said why they were there. Carl's body changed, stiffened. He stepped back, shook his head, gestured toward the lake. He's going to run, Wayne said, but Carl didn't run. He invited them in. The door closed. They waited. 5 minutes. 10. Emma's phone rang. Unknown number. Don't answer that, Wayne said. But she did. Emma? Dolores Briggs, Carl's wife. Voice rough from decades of cigarettes. Is it true? About your father? They found him in the quarry. Silence. Then, I knew. God help me. I knew something was wrong. Carl came home that night covered in mud. Said he'd had to change a tire. But Dale's truck didn't have a flat when they found it, did it? Emma's heart hammered. Dolores, I'm at my sister's in Austin. Been here since yesterday when the sheriff called. I'm not going back. 40 years of marriage, and I'm done lying for him. What happened that night? Carl left at 9. Said he was meeting Dale about selling his share of the business. Came back at 3 in the morning. Shirt had blood on it. Just a little on the sleeve. I washed it. God forgive me. I washed it. Will you testify? A long pause. Yes, your father was a good man. He deserved better than what Carl gave him. Better than what we all gave him. The line went dead. The front door of the lake house opened. Carl came out in handcuffs, Garrett behind him. Even from 50 yards away, Emma could see Carl looking around, searching for something. His eyes found her car, found her watching. He smiled. The same smile from her graduation, her wedding, like he was proud of her. Wayne's hand clenched on her arm. Don't. But Emma was already out of the car, walking toward them. Carl watched her approach, that smile never wavering. Emma, honey, don't. Her voice came out steady. Don't you dare. Your father would be proud of you, Carl said. He always talked about you. Every run, showing that picture, telling everyone about his little girl. You killed him. I tried to save him. The business was failing. The debts. You don't understand what they would have done to me, to all of us. So you shot him? Carl's smile finally faded. He wouldn't take the money. Said he'd rather lose everything honest than steal from the insurance company. Stubborn fool. I offered him half to disappear. More than half. He could have started over, sent for you later. He would never have left us. No, Carl agreed. That was the problem. Dale always did the right thing, even when it was the stupid thing. Garrett guided Carl toward the cruiser. But Carl kept talking, voice carrying across the gravel drive. I helped you, paid for your college with that insurance money. Walked you down the aisle when you got married. I was there, Emma. Where was he? He was at the bottom of Garrison Quarry, where you put him. Carl stopped walking. For a moment, his mask slipped completely. He made me do it. If he'd just taken the money, get him out of here, Emma said to Garrett. They drove Carl away. Emma stood in his driveway, looking at the lake house built with blood money. Wayne came up beside her. You okay? No. She thought about that school photo, protected in plastic, waiting 20 years in the dark. But at least now I know. He didn't leave us. He didn't choose anything else over us. He never would have, Wayne said. Your dad loved two things in this world, you and your mom. Everything else was just work. Emma's phone buzzed. Mom, texting from the hospital where she worked. Saw the news alert. They arrested Carl, coming home early. Are you okay? Emma typed back. He didn't leave us, Mom. He never left us. The lake sparkled in the morning sun. Somewhere out there were answers to the rest of it. Who helped Carl move the truck? Why Garrison Quarry? How he'd kept it secret for 20 years. But those would come. For now, it was enough to know that Dale Hoffman had been exactly who she'd believed he was before that November night. A good man, a loyal partner, a father who would never abandon his family, even if it had cost him everything to stay. The Texaco on Route 287 hadn't changed much in 20 years. Same cracked asphalt, same flickering neon, same bell that chimed when Emma pushed through the door. The clerk, a kid maybe 19, looked up from his phone. Help you? I need to talk to someone who worked here in 1992. Lady, I wasn't even born. The owner then, manager, anyone. The kid shrugged. Mr. Vega owns it. Has since the 80s. He comes in Thursdays for inventory. Thursday. 3 days away. Emma bought a coffee she didn't want and sat in her car, staring at the parking lot. Dad had sat right here, November 8, 1992. Right here where she was parked, his Peterbilt taking up 3 spaces. Carl had been here too. They had his receipt now, 10:15 p.m. But Dad's receipt said 11:47. That gap bothered her. Hour and 32 minutes between them. Her phone rang. Sheriff Garrett. Carl's not talking. Lawyered up. But we found something in his house. Paper rustling. A key to a storage unit. Berkeley's self-storage, Unit 47. His wife says he's had it since 1993. Want me to meet you there? Already here. You should see this. Berkeley's self-storage sat behind the old freight depot. Rows of orange doors baking in the Texas sun. Unit 47 was climate-controlled, the expensive kind. Garrett had the door open, deputies photographing everything inside. Boxes, dozens of them, labeled with dates. Emma saw one marked November 1992. Can I? Gloves first. Garrett handed her latex gloves. We think he kept records of everything. Some kind of insurance in case anyone came after him. Emma opened the November box. Photos, the trucks, the warehouse, shipping manifests. And at the bottom, a cassette tape labeled November 8th, 1992, DH. Jesus Christ, Garrett breathed. Is that? Dad recorded his runs sometimes. Said it helped him stay awake, talking through his thoughts. Emma held the tape like it might shatter. He must have been recording that night. They drove to the station in silence. The evidence tech had an old cassette player, the kind Emma remembered from childhood. The tape clicked in, static. Then Dad's voice, alive and tired, and 20 years dead. 2,300 hours, November 8th. Loading dock was a mess tonight. Carl showed up drunk again. Had to cover his... The recording cut off. Picked up again. Back on 287. Carl followed me to the Texaco. Says he needs to talk about the business. Christ, I know what that means. More money. Dolores called Linda yesterday. They're behind on the house. I can't keep another cut. 11:45. Carl's getting in. He's pretty worked up about... Carl's voice slurred. Just drive, Dale. Drive and listen. You're drunk. I'm desperate. There's a difference. You know what Tony Castellano does to people who owe him 47 grand? That's your problem, Carl. No, that's our problem. He'll come after the business, after both of us. The truck engine rumbled. Emma could hear the turn signal, the shift of gears. Carl, what's that? Insurance papers. Sign them. I'm driving. Pull over then. There's a spot up ahead. The old Garrison Quarry Road. Emma's chest tightened. Wayne grabbed her hand. Dad's voice again. This change, the beneficiary to the company. Temporary, just till I pay off Tony. You die, God forbid. The business gets the money, pays the debts. Everyone's safe. No. Dale, please. I said no, and put that away. What? The gun, Carl. Think I didn't notice? Put it away. Silence except for the engine. Then Carl, different now, steadier. I can't go back without this signed. Then don't go back. They'll kill me. Call the police. File bankruptcy. Hell, I'll loan you what I can. You have $8,000? Because that's what I need by tomorrow. Or they break my legs. First my legs, then my hands, then my head. Carl, sign the fucking papers, Dale. No. The turn signal again. Gravel under tires. The engine stopped. Why are we at the quarry? Dad's voice. Careful now. It's quiet. We need to talk this through. We can talk at the office. Get out. Carl, get out! Car doors opening. Emma could hear wind, distant crickets. Her father breathing. You're going to disappear, Carl said. Take the truck, drive to Mexico. I'll tell everyone you ran off. Insurance pays out. I cover the debts. Everyone lives. Except my family thinks I abandoned them. Better than dead. Because those are your options, Dale. You leave. Or what? You'll shoot me? You're not a killer, Carl. I'm not going to die for your principles. And I'm not abandoning my daughter for your gambling debts. Footsteps on gravel, moving away from the recorder. Dale, please, I'm begging you. No. They have my picture, my address. They know about Dolores. Should have thought about that before you started gambling. I was trying to make us money. The business was struggling. The business was fine until you started skimming. Silence. Long enough that Emma thought the tape had stopped. Then a sound like a firecracker, small and sharp. A thud. Carl's voice, closer to the recorder now. Shit. Shit, shit, shit. Dale? Dale, come on. I didn't mean... Oh, God. Dragging sounds. Grunting. Carl sobbing. The truck door opened. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. You made me. You wouldn't just... The engine started. The truck moving. Gravel, then nothing, then... The splash was smaller than Emma expected. Just a splash. Like someone diving into a pool. Then Carl's voice. Very close to the recorder. November 8th, 1992. 12:47 a.m. He was trying to sound official. Dale Hoffman has abandoned his truck and cargo. Location unknown. I'm recovering the vehicle for Twin Pines Trucking. The tape ran out. Nobody spoke. Emma stared at the cassette player like it might play more, might give her father's voice back, might rewrite the ending. Wayne had his head in his hands. Even Garrett looked shaken. That's murder one, the sheriff finally said. Premeditated. He brought the gun, picked the location. He kept the tape, Emma said. Why keep it? Insurance, in case anyone questioned the story. Garrett rewound the tape carefully. Carl always did keep detailed records. Emma stood up, needed air. Outside, the sun was too bright. She called her mother. Mom, they have a tape. Dad recorded it. What kind of tape? His last night. Carl shot him. We heard it happen. Silence. Then Linda started crying. Really crying. The kind Emma hadn't heard since those first weeks after Dad disappeared. He said no, Linda managed. He could have lived if he'd just signed, but he said no. He wouldn't leave us. That stubborn, stupid, wonderful man. Emma watched traffic pass the station. Regular people, living regular lives, not knowing that a 20-year-old murder had just been solved by a dead man's own voice. There's going to be a trial, Emma said. Dolores will testify. The tape will be played. Good. Let everyone hear it. Let them know Dale Hoffman died rather than abandon his family. Wayne came outside, lit a cigarette with shaking hands. He never smoked anymore, had quit years ago. You okay? Emma asked. I wanted to hurt him. When I heard that tape, I wanted to drive back to that lake house, and... He stopped. Dale wouldn't want that. No. Carl's wife called the station. Wants to talk to you. Emma found Dolores in interview room 2, looking older than her 63 years. She had a box of tissues and a manila envelope. I brought something, Dolores said. Found it in Carl's office when I was packing to leave. She slid out a photo. Dale and Carl, young, maybe 25, standing in front of their first truck. Both grinning, arms over each other's shoulders. Brothers in everything but blood. They were so close once, Dolores said. Before the gambling, before the debts. Carl loved your father. That's what makes this worse. He killed the only real friend he ever had. Then why? Fear makes people into monsters. Carl was so scared of those collectors he couldn't see past it. Dolores pulled out another item, a logbook. "This is Dale's, from the truck. Carl kept it." Emma opened it. November 8th, 1992. The final entry, in Dad's neat handwriting. "Carl needs help. Going to talk to him tonight about getting treatment. Maybe threaten to tell Dolores if he doesn't stop. He's sick, not bad. We can fix this." Even at the end, Dad had believed Carl could be saved. "There's one more thing," Dolores said. She pulled out a small key. "Safety deposit box. First National Bank. Carl doesn't know I knew about it." Emma looked at the key. "What's in it?" "The rest of the insurance money. What he didn't spend on debts. He saved it? Can you believe that? Like he was keeping it for Dale to come back." Dolores laughed, bitter. $130,000. Sitting there for 20 years. It's yours. Yours and your mother's. I already talked to the lawyers." Emma stared at the key. Blood money, Wayne had called it. But also college tuition. Mom's mortgage. 20 years of survival. He said Dad would be proud of me at my wedding. Dale would be proud. But not because Carl walked you down the aisle. Because you never stopped defending him. Even when everyone said he'd left, you defended him. Emma thought about that 8-year-old in the photo, grinning with missing teeth. She'd grown up without him, but she'd grown up loyal to his memory. Maybe that was enough. Maybe that was all any of us could do. Stay loyal to the people we love, even when they're gone, even when the world tells us to let go. Maybe that's what Dale had given her by saying no to Carl that night. Not just his presence, but proof that some things matter more than money, more than fear, more than survival. Some things are worth dying for, even if it takes 20 years to understand what they were. Thursday morning came gray and humid. Emma sat in the Texaco parking lot watching Eddie Vega unlock the door. He was 70-something, walked with a cane, but his eyes were sharp when she introduced herself. "Hoffman," he said slowly. "Dale Hoffman's girl. You remember him?" "I remember that night. FBI, insurance investigators, reporters, everyone wanted to see those tapes, kept them for years before I finally recorded over them." He led her inside, past the chips and beer coolers. "Your dad was a regular, good man. Always exact change. The tapes from that night showed him buying 2 coffees, 2 sandwiches, that's all. Carl wasn't in the frame, stayed by the trucks." Eddie pulled out a cloth, started wiping the counter. "But there was something else. Never told anyone because they never asked the right question." Emma leaned forward. "What question?" "They all wanted to know what happened. Nobody asked about what happened before." Eddie pointed to the parking lot. "There was a third vehicle that night. Came in about 10 p.m., left before your dad got here. Old Chevy Suburban. Brown." "Whose?" "Roy Briggs. Carl's brother." Emma's stomach dropped. Roy Briggs. She barely remembered him. Quiet guy, worked at the rail yard, died in 2003. "You're sure?" "Roy bought cigarettes and a gas can. Said Carl's truck broke down near Garrison Quarry. Needed help getting it running." Eddie's cloth stopped moving. "Funny thing about that, Carl's truck was here, an hour later, running fine." Emma called Garrett from her car. Carl's brother was involved, Roy Briggs. Roy's been dead almost 20 years. But his widow's not. Beth Briggs. Lives over in Millerville. I'll meet you there." But Emma didn't wait. Millerville was 15 minutes away, a cluster of houses around a closed textile mill. Beth Briggs lived in a double-wide at the end of Sawmill Road, yard full of ceramic angels and wind chimes. Beth answered the door in a housecoat, cigarette in hand. 65, maybe 70, hard to tell with some people. "You're Dale's girl." Not a question. I need to know about November 8th, 1992. Beth took a long drag. Been waiting for this visit. Come in. The trailer smelled like cigarettes and cats. Photos covered every surface. Roy and Beth, no kids, just them getting older in each frame until Roy disappeared from them. Liver cancer, Beth said. Ate him up in 6 months. But before he died, he told me things. Morphine loosens tongues. What did he tell you? That he helped Carl move your daddy's truck to the quarry. Beth sat heavily in a recliner. Carl called him that night, panicking. Said there'd been an accident. Roy found him at the quarry with Dale's body, truck still running. Emma's hands clenched. And Roy just helped him? Brothers, Beth said. Like that explained everything. Roy drove Carl's truck back. Carl drove your daddy's into the water. They made it look like Dale drove off on his own. Why didn't you tell anyone? With what proof? Roy was dying. Carl had that insurance money. And your family had already grieved. Beth lit another cigarette. Besides, I was scared. Carl came by after Roy's funeral. Said how sorry he was about my loss. Said he'd make sure I was taken care of. Been sending me $500 a month ever since. Hush money. Survival money. You think a widow with no skills gets by on Social Security? Garrett's cruiser pulled up outside. Beth watched him approach through the window. I'll testify, she said. Roy's gone. Carl's caught. Nothing left to protect. Garrett took Beth's statement while Emma stood in the yard, staring at those ceramic angels. 2 brothers. The Briggs boys had conspired to hide a murder, one out of guilt, one out of loyalty, and they'd nearly gotten away with it. Emma's phone rang. Her mother. The bank called. About that safety deposit box. Dolores gave me the key. There's more than money in there, Em. Documents. Photos. The banker says it looks like Carl documented everything. Emma drove to First National, met her mother in the lobby. The banker, a nervous man named Peterson, led them to a private room. The box was larger than Emma expected. Inside, cash, bundled and rubber-banded, insurance documents, and underneath, a manila envelope marked insurance. But it wasn't insurance for the business. Photos. Carl had taken photos that night. Dale's truck at the quarry edge. Dale's body, barely visible in the cab. The truck half submerged. And finally, Carl and Roy standing by Carl's truck. Roy's face blurred but visible. Evidence, Linda said quietly. He kept evidence of his own crime. Leverage, Emma corrected, in case Roy ever turned on him. There was one more item, a cassette tape, unlabeled. Emma looked at her mother, who nodded. They drove to the sheriff's station, played it in the same room where they'd heard Dad's last words. Carl's voice, drunk and rambling. November 9th, 1992. Roy helped me tonight. Dale's gone. Made it look like he ran. Insurance will pay out. I can cover Tony's debt. Nobody has to know. Nobody has to. Crying, Carl sobbing for 3 minutes. I killed my best friend. Dale's dead because I couldn't stop gambling. But the family will be okay. Insurance will take care of them. That's something, right? That has to be something. The tape ended. He was trying to justify it, Linda said. Even then. Emma thought about Carl at her wedding, smiling, telling her Dale would be proud. Living with this for 20 years. How did someone do that? How did they smile at birthday parties and barbecues, knowing they'd murdered someone who trusted them? Her phone buzzed. Text, from an unknown number. Your dad wasn't supposed to die. Neither was Roy. Careful how deep you dig. Emma showed Garrett. He immediately called for a trace. Someone's worried, he said. Someone else knows something. Emma thought about Tony Castellano, the bookie Carl owed money to. Still alive, supposedly legitimate now, running a construction company. The same company that got the contract to drain Garrison Quarry. "Oh my God," she said. Tony knew. He had to. The quarry! Garrett was already moving. If Tony's company found the truck on purpose, then this isn't over. They drove to Castellano Construction, a legitimate-looking operation with trucks and equipment yards. Tony himself was in his office. 68 years old, silver-haired, looking like someone's grandfather. "Sheriff, Miss Hoffman, I heard about Dale. Terrible thing." "Cut the shit," Garrett said. "Your company just happened to get the contract for the quarry where Dale's truck was hidden?" Tony smiled. "I bid on a lot of projects. Win some." "You knew Carl owed you money in '92. Ancient history. Debt was paid. With insurance money from Dale Hoffman's death." "I wouldn't know about that. Carl paid cash." Emma stepped forward. "You knew the truck was there." "Prove it." Roy told his wife, before he died. Tony's smile faded slightly. "Roy was sick. Said a lot of things. He said you told Carl about the quarry. Said you suggested it as a good place to hide something. Fiction. Then you won't mind if we check your records from 1992, Garrett said. See if there's any connection between you and the quarry before now. Tony stood up. "Get a warrant." Outside, Emma was shaking with rage. He knew he pushed Carl to it. Maybe, but knowing and proving are different things. Garrett looked tired. "Carl pulled the trigger. That's what we can prove." "So Tony just walks? Unless we find something else." Emma thought about those photos in the safety deposit box. Carl documenting everything. If he'd photographed the murder scene, what else had he documented? "We need to go back to the storage unit," she said. "There has to be more." The November 1992 box had been removed as evidence, but there were dozens more. December 1992. January 1993. Each one meticulously labeled. In March 1993, they found it. A receipt from Castellano Construction to Twin Pines Trucking. For consulting services, $20,000. "That's not consulting," Garrett said. "That's a finder's fee. Tony charged Carl for telling him about the quarry." More receipts. Regular payments from Twin Pines to Castellano Construction through 1997. Nearly $100,000 total. Tony owned him, Emma said. Killed Dale, then bled the business dry. In the last box, 1998, there was a contract. Twin Pines Trucking sold to Castellano Holdings for $1. That's why Carl sold. Tony took the whole thing. Emma stared at the contract. Her father had died for a business that ended up in his killer's hands anyway. All of it for nothing. "We have enough," Garrett said. "Conspiracy, accessory after the fact, extortion. Tony's going down too." Emma nodded, but she was thinking about the text. Neither was Roy. "Sheriff," she said slowly, "when did Roy die?" 2003, Beth said. "Of liver cancer." "Right. Roy didn't drink. Dad mentioned it once. Roy was allergic to alcohol, broke out in hives." Garrett's face changed. I think Tony cleaned house. Roy knew too much." They drove back to Beth's trailer. She was still in her recliner, but something was different. Another car in the driveway, Tony Castellano's Lincoln. Garrett called for backup, but Emma was already moving. Through the window, she could see Tony standing over Beth, hands gesturing. Beth looked terrified. "Stay here," Garrett ordered, but Emma followed him to the door. "Keep your mouth shut," Tony was saying. "Same deal as before. You talk, you lose everything." "Police," Garrett announced. "Step away from Mrs. Briggs." Tony turned, unsurprised. "Sheriff, just visiting an old friend." Beth, are you okay? Beth nodded, but her hands were shaking. Mr. Castellano was just leaving, Garrett said. Tony straightened his jacket. Mrs. Briggs and I have an understanding. 20 years of understanding. Right, Beth. Beth looked at Emma, at Garrett, at Tony. Then she straightened in her chair. Roy didn't die of cancer, she said. He was poisoned. Slow, over months. Tony brought him supplements, said they'd help with his liver. Roy trusted him. Tony's face went cold. Prove it. Roy kept one of the bottles. Hid it. Said if anything happened to me, make sure it got tested. Beth stood up, walked to a cabinet, pulled out a supplement bottle, dusty and old. 20 years I've kept this. 20 years of being afraid. Tony lunged for it, but Garrett was faster, cuffs clicking on before Tony could reach the bottle. Anthony Castellano, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, accessory after the fact, extortion, and suspected murder of Roy Briggs. Tony laughed. You think this ends with me? You have no idea how deep this goes. But Emma wasn't listening. She was looking at Beth, at the woman who'd kept evidence for 20 years, waiting for someone to ask the right questions. Just like Carl had kept his tapes and photos. Just like Dad had kept recording that night. Everyone documenting their sins, waiting to be caught. Or waiting to be cleared. The truth didn't always set you free. Sometimes it just showed you the size of the prison you'd been living in all along. The trial was set for spring. Carl Briggs, charged with first-degree murder. Tony Castellano, charged with conspiracy, extortion, and suspicion of murder in Roy's death. Emma thought that would be the end of it, but the universe wasn't done with surprises. She was cleaning out her apartment's storage closet, needed to keep busy, keep moving, when she found the box. Her teenage stuff, things Mom had dropped off years ago. Diaries, photos, mixtapes. And at the bottom, a bundle of letters tied with twine. Letters from Dad, sent to her at summer camp in 1992. She'd been 8, gone for 2 weeks in July. She'd forgotten he wrote every day. Dear Emma Bear, hope you're having fun at camp. Saw a red-tailed hawk on my run today. Made me think of you. Remember when we watched that one circle the yard? Normal Dad stuff. Except the last letter, dated July 14th, had something else. Uncle Carl's been having some troubles. Adult stuff. Nothing for you to worry about. But if anything ever happens to me, remember that I love you more than all the stars in Texas. Take care of your mom. And remember, I keep my important things in the place where we watched the fireworks. Emma's hands shook. The place where they watched fireworks. The roof of the truck's sleeping cab. They'd climbed up there every 4th of July at the company lot, watched the city display from miles away. She called Wayne. I need to get into Dad's truck, now. The truck was still in the impound lot, released from evidence, but nowhere else to go. Wayne met her there with Garrett, who had the keys. What are we looking for? Wayne asked. Dad hid something, in the roof of the sleeping cab. They climbed into the musty interior. The ceiling of the sleeping compartment looked solid, but Emma remembered Dad showing her once how the panels came down for maintenance. Wayne popped the first panel. Nothing. The second, insulation and wires. The third made a different sound. Hollow. There's something here. A plastic bag, wrapped in duct tape. Inside, a notebook and another cassette tape. The notebook was Dad's backup log, the one the company never saw. Emma opened it. Found July 1992. Carl's in deep with Tony Castellano. 47,000. Tony threatened to hurt Dolores. Carl asked me to help fake a robbery, collect insurance. Said number. August 1992. Carl's getting desperate, talking about accidents, disappearances. Told him to get help. He said it's too late for that. September 1992. Found Carl in the office with my insurance papers. Changed them back. Need to keep these somewhere safe. If something happens to me, it's Carl. October 1992. Tony came by the yard today. Said I was a good man. Shame if something happened. They're planning something. The final entry, November 7th, 1992, the day before he died. Carl asked me to take the Dallas run tomorrow. His turn, but says he's sick. Think this is it. Recording everything now. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead. Tell Emma I loved her. Tell Linda I'm sorry. Make sure Carl pays. Emma couldn't breathe. He knew, Dad knew they were going to kill him. Why didn't he run? Wayne asked. Or go to the police? Garrett held up the tape. Let's find out. Back at the station, they played it. Dad's voice, tired but determined. November 7th, 1992. If you're hearing this, something's happened to me. Carl Briggs and Tony Castellano have been planning something. Carl owes Tony money from gambling. They want to use my life insurance to pay it. I could run, could take Emma and Linda, and disappear. But that's no life for them. Always looking over our shoulders. And Carl would still owe Tony. Tony would go after Carl's family next. Dolores. Maybe even come after mine anyway. So I'm going to take that Dallas run tomorrow. Going to act normal. If they try something, this tape is evidence. If they don't, maybe Carl found another way out. Emma, baby girl, if you ever hear this, I'm not brave. I'm just tired of watching Carl destroy himself. Maybe if I'm gone, the insurance money saves him. Maybe he gets clean, takes care of you and your mom. Maybe something good comes from this. I know that's stupid. But I've got no good choices left. Run and live in fear, or stay in hope Carl remembers who he used to be. I love you, Emma, more than all the stars in Texas. The tape clicked off. Nobody spoke. Emma felt hollow, carved out. Her father had walked into his death with eyes open, hoping the man who would kill him might somehow be saved by it. Jesus, Wayne whispered. He committed suicide by Carl. No, Emma said firmly. He was murdered. Dad hoped Carl would back out, hoped their friendship meant something. Her phone rang. Dolores Briggs. Emma, I need to see you. It's important. Can you come to the house? Emma didn't want to go back to that lake house, but Dolores sounded different, urgent. The house was half-packed, boxes everywhere. Dolores was in Carl's office, shredding documents. I'm destroying everything that's not evidence, she said. But I found this, hidden in his desk. A leather journal, worn and stained. Carl's handwriting. It's from 1992, Dolores said, and after. Emma opened it. November 9th, 1992, the day after the murder. Dale's dead. I killed him. I killed my best friend. He wouldn't sign the papers. Why couldn't he just sign? Now Emma has no father. Linda has no husband. And I have to live with this. Tony says it's clean. Nobody will know. But I know. I'll always know. November 15th. Insurance company is investigating. Have to act normal. Went to see Linda today. She was crying. Emma asked when Daddy was coming home. I threw up after. December 25th. Christmas at Linda's. Brought presents for Emma. She hugged me, said I was the best uncle. I'm not. I'm the worst thing that ever happened to her. The entries continued, year after year. Carl documenting his guilt, his attempts to make amends, his slow descent into alcoholism. By 1998, the writing was barely legible. Selling the company to Tony. He wins. Got Dale killed, got the business, got everything. I got nothing but ghosts. 2003. Roy's dead. Tony says cancer. But Roy was getting nervous, talking about confessing. Now he's gone. When's my turn? 2012. Just weeks ago. They're draining the quarry. Dale's coming home. 20 years of waiting for this. Almost relief. Emma will know the truth. Finally. The last entry. The day of his arrest. She looked at me like Dale used to. Disappointed, but not surprised. I wanted to tell her everything. How her dad was brave, how he knew something might happen, how he faced it anyway. But what's the point? Dale's dead. Roy's dead. And I'm already in hell. Emma closed the journal. Dolores was crying. He destroyed everything, Dolores said. 3 families, ruined. For what? Gambling debts? Fear, Emma said. Dad wrote that Tony threatened you. Carl was trying to protect you. By killing Dale? By making a terrible choice in a moment of panic. Emma's phone buzzed. Text from an unknown number again. Your father wasn't the only one. Check the quarry records, 1978 to 1992. She showed Garrett when she got back to the station. Someone's still feeding us information, he said. Someone who wants Tony to go down but can't come forward. They pulled the quarry records. Garrison Quarry, closed in 1978, after a worker died in an accident. Owned by Castellano Holdings since 1975. Tony owned it the whole time, Garrett said. It was his dumping ground. They got a warrant, sent divers back in. Over 3 days, they found 2 more vehicles. A sedan from 1981, driver shot in the head. A van from 1988, 2 bodies, both shot. All 3 vehicles had been reported stolen, their occupants missing persons. Tony's been killing people for 30 years, Garrett said, using the quarry as his cemetery. The FBI took over. Tony's construction empire unraveled. Money laundering, murder, racketeering. Carl became a witness, trading testimony for a reduced sentence. Life without parole instead of the death penalty. Emma went to see him once before the trial. He looked older, smaller, gray stubble, and orange jumpsuit. I know about the letters, she said. Dad knew you might try something. Carl nodded. Dale always was smarter than me. He hoped you'd back out. Even at the end, he believed you were better than this. I wasn't. No, you weren't. Carl was quiet for a moment. The tape, from the truck. Does it? We hear the shot. We hear you crying. Good. Everyone should know what I did. What I took from you. Emma stood to leave, then stopped. Dad wrote that he hoped his death would save you. That you'd get clean. Take care of us. Carl laughed, bitter. I tried. God knows I tried. But every time I looked at you, I saw him. Every good thing I did was with his blood money. You could have confessed. Any time in 20 years. And lose Dolores? Go to prison? I was a coward, Emma. That's all. A coward who killed a brave man. Emma left him there. Outside the prison, Wayne was waiting. How was it? Empty, like talking to a ghost. They drove to the cemetery where they'd buried Dad properly. A small stone with his name, dates, and beloved father and husband. Linda was there, arranging fresh flowers. Prosecutor called, she said. Trial starts Monday. Emma nodded. They'd all have to testify. Have to relive that night through evidence and testimony. But at least now there would be justice. Or something like it. You know what I keep thinking? Linda said. Dale knew something might happen, but he still kissed us goodbye that morning, like it was normal. Still made your lunch, still fixed that loose board on the porch. He lived his last day like he had a million more. because he hoped Carl would change his mind, or because he wanted our last memories to be normal, not shadowed by fear. Emma thought about that, about her father's choice to face danger rather than run, about Carl's choice to pull the trigger, about Tony's choice to poison Roy, about Roy's choice to help his brother, choices rippling through decades, destroying families, creating ghosts, but also about Beth's choice to keep evidence, about Dolores's choice to testify, about Wayne's choice to never stop defending his brother, about her mother's choice to rebuild their lives, and her own choice now, to let this define her or to just let it be part of her story. "I'm pregnant," she said suddenly. She hadn't meant to announce it here now, but it felt right. Linda turned, eyes wide. Wayne dropped his cigarette. "About 6 weeks," Emma continued. "Just found out." Her mother hugged her, crying again, but different tears. "Dale would have been so happy," Linda whispered. "A grandfather." Emma touched her still flat stomach. New life growing while they sorted through old death. The timing felt cosmic, planned, though she knew it was just coincidence. Or maybe not. Maybe this was Dad's final gift. Not the insurance money, or the evidence, or even the truth, but the reminder that life continues, that families endure, that love survives even murder, even decades, even the bottom of a quarry. She'd name the baby Dale if it was a boy. That was decided. And she'd tell him the truth when he was old enough, that his grandfather was a good man who died rather than abandon his family, who saw death coming and faced it with hope that his killer might find redemption. That was a legacy worth preserving, even if it had taken 20 years to surface. Emma couldn't stop thinking about that text. Your father wasn't the only one. Check the quarry records. 1978 to 1992. The FBI had taken over the quarry investigation, but Emma knew a clerk at the county records office, Brenda, who'd gone to school with Mom. "Garrison Quarry," Brenda said, pulling dusty boxes. "Closed in 78. But there's something strange. Ownership transferred to Castellano Holdings in 1975, but the paperwork was filed by Morrison Development." Emma's stomach dropped. Jack Morrison? His father, actually. Jack took over in 1980. Brenda pulled out another file. "Look at this. Morrison Development also owned 3 other quarries, all closed between 1976 and 1982. All sold to shell companies connected to Tony Castellano. 4 quarries, 4 dumping grounds." Emma drove to the hardware store where she worked, called in sick, then headed to Morrison Transport's warehouse. She needed to know what Jack Morrison's connection was. The industrial district was quiet at midday. Through the chain-link fence, she could see trucks being loaded. Normal shipping, nothing suspicious. But something felt wrong about the whole setup. A hand grabbed her shoulder. Emma spun, almost screamed. A woman stood there, maybe 40, wearing a trucker's jacket. "You're Emma Hoffman." "Who are—" "Maria Vasquez. I drive for Morrison, and I knew your dad." Emma's heart hammered. "You're the one who sent that text. We need to move. Security does rounds." Maria led her to a pickup parked behind a dead warehouse. "Your dad trained me. Summer of 92, just before he died. He was a good man." "What's Morrison Transport moving?" "Same thing Tony had Twin Pines moving after your dad died. Drugs from Mexico. But that's not the worst part." Maria lit a cigarette, hands shaking. Jack Morrison was Tony's silent partner. Has been since the 80s. Emma felt the ground tilt. Jack Morrison, who'd given her a job after Dad disappeared. Who'd been at every town council meeting, Every charity drive? Who'd hired half the town's kids? Dad found out, didn't he? The Dallas run. Your dad was supposed to take. It wasn't machine parts. It was a drug shipment. Your dad would have discovered it when he made the delivery. That's why Carl had to kill him that night. But Carl said it was about the gambling debts. That was real too. Tony used Carl's debts to force him to kill Dale. But Jack Morrison gave the order. Maria pulled out a manila envelope. I've been collecting evidence for 15 years. After what happened to your dad, I kept my mouth shut and my eyes open. Inside the envelope, shipping manifests with dual entries, one official, one real. Photos of trucks at border crossings, a list of dates and locations. Why didn't you go to the police? Jack owns half the police. The other half are too scared. Maria started her truck. But now Tony's arrested. Jack's nervous. He's moving everything. Tonight at 2 a.m., he's cleaning house, moving all the evidence out of state. Emma's phone rang. Sheriff Garrett. Where are you? His voice was tight. Industrial District. Get home. Now someone torched Carl's storage unit. Fire department's there, but everything's gone. Emma looked at Maria. They're destroying evidence. Like I said, cleaning house. Maria handed her another envelope. This is my insurance. Recordings, documents, photos. Everything I could gather. You want justice for your dad? Jack Morrison has to fall. Emma drove home, mind racing. She found Garrett at the storage facility, watching firefighters spray water on the blackened ruins of Unit 47. Accelerant everywhere, he said. Professional job. It was Morrison. Emma showed him Maria's evidence. Jack Morrison ordered Dad's murder. Garrett went pale. Emma, Jack Morrison donated $300,000 to my election campaign. Are you saying? I'm saying be careful. If this is true, he owns half the town. Emma's phone buzzed. Mom calling. Someone broke into the house. Linda's voice shook. They didn't take anything, but Dale's photos are all turned backwards. Every single one. A message. They could reach her family. Emma drove to her mother's house. Linda was on the porch with Wayne, both looking scared. This was on the kitchen table. Wayne handed her a note. Some rocks are better left unturned. Your father learned that. We're getting close, Emma said. Morrison's scared. Morrison? Wayne's face darkened. Jack Morrison was at Dale's funeral. He gave the eulogy. Emma remembered. Morrison talking about what a good man Dale was, how the town had lost a pillar of the community, all while knowing he'd ordered the murder. She hid Maria's evidence in her car, under the spare tire. Then she called Maria back. Can you meet tonight? We need more proof. Can't. Morrison's got me on a run to Houston. But there's someone else who wants to talk. Pete Kowalski. The name was familiar from the old news articles. Tony's enforcer from the 90s. He's dying, Maria said. Cancer. Has maybe weeks left. He called me, said he wants to clear his conscience about your dad. Where? The old rest stop on Highway 6. Midnight. But Emma, be careful. Pete's burned a lot of bridges. At 11:45, Emma parked at the rest stop. Abandoned since the new highway opened, just crumbling concrete and dead lights. One other car waited, an old Crown Victoria. Pete Kowalski looked like death walking. Thin, gray, breathing from an oxygen tank, but his eyes were sharp. You look like him, he said. Same stubborn set to the jaw. Tell me about Morrison. Jack and Tony were partners since '79. Tony was muscle, Jack was money. They used trucking companies to move product from Mexico, clean businesses for dirty money. Pete pulled out a cigarette, laughed at the irony, lit it anyway. Your dad's company was perfect. Small, family run, good reputation. So they targeted him? They tried to buy in first. Your dad said no. Then they went after Carl, knew he was weak, got him in debt, used that as leverage. But Carl loved my father? That's why it worked. Tony knew Carl would do anything to protect Dolores, even kill his best friend. Pete took a long drag. But your dad figured it out. The week before he died, he went to see Jack. Emma's breath caught. Dad confronted Morrison? November 1st. I was there, sitting in Jack's office. Your dad walked in, told Jack to leave Twin Pines alone. Jack laughed, said truckers were replaceable. What did Dad say? That he'd go to the FBI. Had evidence of the drug running. Jack told him to go ahead. Who'd believe a trucker over the town's biggest employer? Pete dropped the cigarette. Your dad left. Jack turned to me and Tony, said, "Fix this." 1 week later, your dad was dead. You were there when they planned it? I gave Tony the idea about the quarry. My uncle worked there in the 70s, told me about the deep spots that never got mapped. Pete coughed hard. I've been carrying that for 20 years. A car engine started nearby, then another. Headlights blazed from 3 directions. Shit, Pete muttered. They followed you. Or you. Does it matter? He pulled out a revolver. Get behind the car. The vehicles stopped in a triangle, boxing them in. Men got out. Emma recognized one from Morrison Transport. Then Jack Morrison himself stepped into the light. 70 years old, silver-haired, wearing a suit that cost more than most people's cars. Pete, he said pleasantly, you should be in hospice. Wanted some fresh air. And Miss Hoffman, your father had that same stubborn look right before we discussed his future. Emma stood up. You ordered his murder. I suggested Carl solve his problem. How he did it was his choice. Morrison smiled. Just like you chose to come here tonight. People know where I am. No, they don't. You came alone, just like your father always worked alone. Hoffman family tradition, noble stupidity. Pete raised his gun. 3 others raised theirs. Here's what happens, Morrison said. Pete shoots himself. Guilt over all those years of violence. You disappear. Another Hoffman who couldn't handle the truth about Daddy. Tragic. Maria Vasquez has evidence. She'll talk. Morrison checked his watch. Maria's truck just jackknifed on Route 10. Brake line failure. Terrible accident, though she'll probably survive. If you cooperate? Emma's phone was recording in her pocket. But Morrison noticed her hand. Phone, now. She handed it over. He dropped it, crushed it under his heel. Your father thought he was smart too. Recordings, evidence, backup plans. Morrison stepped closer. Want to know what he said when I told him Carl would kill him? You're lying. He said Carl's not a killer. Even after I showed him the photos of Carl at the casino, the IOUs, the gun Carl had bought. Your father still believed in his friend. Morrison laughed. That faith got him killed. You manipulated Carl. I gave him a choice, his wife or his friend. He chose wisely. Pete coughed, doubled over. Blood spotted his hand. Lung cancer's a bitch, he gasped. Then louder. Almost as much of a bitch as you, Jack. Morrison sighed. Kill them both. Pete turned the gun toward Emma, then pivoted and shot Morrison's man on the left. Chaos exploded. Gunfire, shouting, headlights swinging wild as drivers dove for cover. Run! Pete screamed, firing again. Emma ran into the darkness, heard Morrison shouting orders. An engine roared. Pete's Crown Vic smashing through their line. More gunshots. A crash. She kept running, hit the tree line, crashed through brush. Behind her, flashlights swept the rest stop. They'd hunt her. But she knew these woods, had camped here with Dad as a kid. The quarry was 2 miles north, where it all started. She had to make it there. Garrett would check there first when Mom reported her missing. Emma ran through darkness, guided by memory and moonlight. Behind her, Morrison's men spread out, searching. She reached the quarry as dawn broke, the water black and still where they'd pulled Dad's truck from. Her car was there. How? She hadn't driven here. Then Wayne stepped out from behind it. Emma, your mom called when you didn't come home. Said you'd gone to meet someone about Dad. Wayne, we have to go. Morrison is already here. Morrison emerged from Wayne's truck. Wayne's face crumpled. I'm sorry, Em. They have my son. Grabbed him from college. Emma's cousin, Wayne's boy, 20 years old. You should have left it alone, Morrison said. Now more families get hurt. Let him go. This is between us. No, this is about everyone learning their place. Your father didn't. You didn't. Maybe your cousin will. Wayne pulled out a gun, an old .22, hands shaking. Wayne, no, they have my boy, but I can't do this again. Can't lose another person to this quarry. He turned the gun on Morrison. Let them both go, Jack. Morrison didn't flinch. You won't shoot. You're not Dale. You're weak, like Carl. You're right. Wayne's voice was steady now. I'm not Dale. Dale tried to do the right thing. Me, I just want this over. He pulled the trigger. Morrison staggered, looked down at the spreading red on his white shirt. You shot me. Small caliber, Wayne said. Just like you had Carl use on Dale. Poetic, right? Morrison fell to his knees at the quarry's edge, the same spot where Carl had pushed Dad's truck in 20 years ago. You don't understand, Morrison gasped. The whole town runs on what I built. Without me, without you, maybe we can finally clean this place up. Wayne kept the gun trained on him. Emma, there's evidence in Morrison's truck. He was stupid enough to bring it. Wanted to show you before he killed you. Ego always was his weakness. Emma looked in the truck. Boxes of documents, photos, and cassette tapes, dozens of them, all labeled with dates and initials. One marked DH11 January 1992. Dad's conversation with Morrison. The one Pete had described, sirens in the distance, getting closer. Morrison tried to stand, slipped on the wet rocks. The quarry edge crumbled under his weight. Help me, he gasped, hanging onto a root. Emma stepped forward, then stopped. Remembered Dad's voice on that tape, begging Carl to think. Remembered 20 years of believing he'd abandoned them. Wayne grabbed Morrison's wrist, pulled him up. You're going to live, and you're going to prison, and everyone's going to know what you did. Sheriff Garrett's cruiser roared up, followed by state police. Real state police, not local. Wayne called us, the lead officer said. Said Jack Morrison was destroying evidence in a federal case. They took Morrison away in an ambulance, cuffed to the gurney. Wayne in another car, but not arrested. Self-defense, Garrett said. Emma stood at the quarry's edge, looking at the black water. Dad had died here, but the truth had lived. Her phone buzzed. Maria, from the hospital. Survived the crash, talking to FBI now. It's over. Not over, but ending. Finally ending. The FBI raid started at dawn, 3 days after Morrison's arrest. Emma watched from her apartment window as black SUVs surrounded Morrison Transport. Agents in windbreakers carried out box after box. 20 years of evidence Morrison had kept, just like Carl. Everyone documenting their crimes, waiting to be caught. Wayne's son Tyler had been found unharmed in a motel outside Austin. Morrison's men abandoning him when news of the shooting spread. Wayne was out on bail, the prosecutor calling it clear self-defense. But Emma could see the weight on him. Taking a life, even Morrison's, had cost him something. She was making coffee when someone knocked. Maria Vasquez stood there on crutches, face still bruised from the crash. "They didn't cut my brake lines," Maria said, coming in. "Morrison lied about that. One of his trucks ran me off the road." "But you're testifying?" "Tomorrow, federal grand jury." Maria sat heavily at the kitchen table. "But there's something else. Something I didn't tell the FBI yet." Emma poured coffee, waited. "Your dad wasn't the first trucker Morrison and Tony killed. There were 3 others between 1985 and 1991, drivers who asked questions or refused to carry special cargo." "Who were they?" "Ben Hutchins, 1985. Found dead in his cab. Heart attack, they said. He was 32. Mike Garrett, 1988. Garrett, like Sheriff Garrett. His brother. Truck burned on Interstate 20. Ruled an accident. Tom Garrett was a rookie cop then. Pushed for an investigation, but got shut down." Maria pulled out a worn notebook. "The third was Louise Palmer, 1991. Single mom, 2 kids. Her truck went off a bridge. No skid marks." Emma stared at the names. Sheriff Garrett knew? This whole time? He suspected. But Morrison owned his superiors. Tom spent 20 years working his way up, waiting for a chance. Maria slid the notebook over. "Louise Palmer's daughter works at the courthouse. Jennifer Palmer Cross. She's been helping me gather evidence." The name hit Emma like ice water. Jennifer Cross, the prosecutor handling Carl and Morrison's cases. She knows Morrison killed her mother? She's known for years, been building a case file, waiting for the right moment. Maria stood. "She wants to meet you. Today. There's something in your dad's truck she needs to see." They met at the impound lot. Jennifer Palmer Cross was 43, sharp-featured, with her mother's eyes in the old photo she carried. "I was 9 when Mom died," she said, staring at Dale's truck. "Old enough to know it wasn't an accident. She'd called me that night, said if anything happened, remember the name Morrison." "Why didn't you?" "I was 9. Then I was a teenager nobody believed. Then I was a law student who needed to stay quiet to get into position." Jennifer climbed into the truck's cab. "Your dad hid something else. Maria remembers him working on something the week before he died." Jennifer felt along the dashboard, pulled it open. Behind the radio, wrapped in plastic, another tape, and a key. The tape was labeled Insurance, November 5th, 1992. Emma's hands shook. 3 days before Dad died. They played it in Garrett's office. Dad's voice, tired but determined. "This is Dale Hoffman. If you're hearing this, something's happened to me. The following is my sworn statement about Morrison Transport and Twin Pines Trucking. Jack Morrison and Tony Castellano have been using local trucking companies to transport drugs from Mexico since at least 1985. They killed Ben Hutchins when he found a shipment. They killed Mike Garrett when he tried to report it. They killed Louise Palmer when she refused to drive for them. I have proof. Safety Deposit Box 447 at First National. The key is hidden in my truck. The evidence includes photos of drug shipments, recordings of Morrison and Tony discussing murders, and documents showing the money laundering through Morrison Development. Carl Briggs is being blackmailed. They're using his gambling debts to force him to do something. I think they want him to kill me. Carl's not a killer, but he's desperate. If I die, check Carl's gun. He bought a .22 last month. I saw the receipt. I'm not running. Emma needs stability. Linda needs our home. And if I run, Morrison and Tony will just kill someone else. Maybe Carl. Maybe another driver who asks questions. So I'm leaving this recording. I'm gathering evidence, and I'm trusting that someday someone will care enough to use it. The tape ended. Jennifer was crying. Garrett had his head in his hands. He knew everything, Emma whispered. He could have stopped it. How? Garrett asked. I tried for years to get evidence on Morrison. Every time I got close, witnesses disappeared or recanted. Your dad knew what we were up against. Emma held up the key. Safety deposit box 447. The bank manager was nervous, had been since the FBI showed up. Box 447 required 2 keys, the one from Dad's truck and the bank's master. Inside, photographs that made Emma's stomach turn, bodies in truck cabs, Morrison and Tony at meeting points, drugs being transferred, and at the bottom, a ledger in Dad's handwriting. Every suspicious death, every drug shipment he'd tracked, every payment between Morrison companies. This is it, Jennifer said. This breaks everything open. But there was one more envelope. Emma's name on it, Dad's handwriting. Emma Bear, if you're reading this, I'm gone and you're old enough to understand. I'm sorry I couldn't be there. I'm sorry you had to grow up without me. But I need you to know, leaving you was never a choice I would make. Morrison and Tony are evil men. They've killed friends of mine. They'll kill more if not stopped. I could run and take you and Mom somewhere safe. But then other families suffer. Other little girls lose their daddies. So I'm staying. I'm gathering evidence. And if they kill me, that evidence survives. You survive. The truth survives. I love you more than all the stars in Texas. And take care of your mom. Be brave, but not stupid. And remember, doing the right thing sometimes costs everything. But doing the wrong thing costs more. All my love, Dad. P.S. There's $10,000 cash in here. I've been saving it from runs. If something happens to me, this is yours. Don't let anyone tell you it's blood money. It's honest money for my honest girl. Emma couldn't see through the tears. 20 years this had been waiting. Dad's final message, his final gift. There's more, Jennifer said, looking through the ledger. Names, dozens of names. Everyone involved. She stopped at one page. Oh my God. Emma looked. A list of cops on Morrison's payroll, judges, city officials, and at the bottom, circled in red, inside man at FBI, Dallas office. Identity unknown, but Morrison calls him Bishop. That's why the FBI raids took so long, Garrett said. Morrison had someone inside. Jennifer's phone rang. She listened, went pale. Carl's dead. What? Found in his cell an hour ago, hanging, but his hands were bruised, defensive wounds. Morrison cleaning house, even from a hospital bed. Emma's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Don't answer, Garrett started. But Emma already had. Miss Hoffman. A man's voice, smooth, professional. Special Agent David Bishop, FBI Dallas. I understand you found some interesting documents. Emma's blood went cold. Bishop, Morrison's inside man. We need those documents brought to our office immediately, for safekeeping. I'll bring them to the local office, Emma said carefully. No, Dallas, today. Come alone. His voice hardened. Your cousin Tyler is such a nice young man. Be a shame if his car had mechanical problems on the highway. The line went dead. He's threatening Tyler, Emma said. Garrett was already on his phone. State police. We need protection for Tyler Hoffman. Immediately. Jennifer grabbed the ledger. We need copies. Now. They spent an hour at the sheriff's office, copying everything. Then Emma called Bishop back. I'll bring the originals, but if anything happens to my family, nothing happens if you cooperate. Federal Building, Dallas. 3 hours. Emma looked at Garrett and Jennifer. It's a trap. Obviously, Jennifer said, but we can use that. The plan was simple. Emma would go, wired, with state police following. Jennifer would simultaneously file everything with a federal judge she trusted in Austin. Garrett would protect the family, but plans never survive contact with the enemy. Emma was halfway to Dallas when her phone rang. Mom, crying. They took Wayne. Men in FBI jackets. Said he was being arrested for Morrison's shooting. Where's Tyler? With me. Real state police are here. But Wayne, Emma called Bishop. You have Wayne. Insurance. Bring the documents. Your uncle goes free. She looked at the briefcase beside her. The originals Dad had hidden for 20 years. The evidence that could destroy Morrison's entire network. Or she could turn around, save Wayne, let Morrison's organization survive. Dad had faced the same choice. Save himself or save others. Emma knew what he'd choose, what he did choose. She kept driving to Dallas. The federal building's parking garage was almost empty. Bishop waited by a black SUV, 2 other agents with him. Except Emma doubted they were real agents. The documents, Bishop said. Wayne first. Bishop nodded to the SUV. They opened the back. Wayne was there, zip-tied, duct tape over his mouth. Alive. Emma handed over the briefcase. Bishop opened it, smiled at the photos and ledger. Your father was thorough. He was murdered for that thoroughness. He was murdered because he wouldn't mind his own business. Bishop held up the ledger. This dies here. Morrison's organization continues. You go home, mourn your losses, and live quietly. Like I have a choice. You do. Die here with your uncle, or live knowing you were smart enough to walk away. Emma looked at Wayne, saw him shake his head slightly. He was telling her to run, but she was Dale Hoffman's daughter. There's one problem with your plan, she said. Bishop raised an eyebrow. That's not the only copy. Jennifer Palmer Cross stepped out from behind a concrete pillar, followed by real FBI agents, dozens of them, weapons drawn. Special Agent Bishop, one called out. You're under arrest. Bishop went for his gun. Bad decision. They dropped him before he cleared the holster. The 2 fake agents surrendered immediately. Wayne was freed, pulling Emma into a hug that hurt her ribs. You could have run, he said. Dad wouldn't have. No, he wouldn't. Later, at the FBI office, the real office, Emma gave her statement. Jennifer had filed everything with the Austin judge. Arrest warrants were being issued across 3 states. Morrison's network, 2 decades in the making, was crumbling in hours. Your father would be proud, the lead agent said. Emma thought about that, about pride and ghosts and the weight of truth. He'd be alive if he'd run, she said. Maybe. Or maybe Morrison would have killed him anyway. Men like that don't leave loose ends. Emma's phone rang. Mom. Come home, Linda said. There's something on the news you need to see. The TV showed Morrison's hospital room. He was dead. Heart attack, they said. But the timing was suspicious, an hour after Bishop's arrest. Someone cleaned up the last loose end, Garrett said. Emma didn't care. Morrison was gone. Tony was in federal custody. The network was destroyed. But there was one more thing. That night, she drove to the quarry alone, stood where Dad's truck had gone in, where Wayne had shot Morrison, where 20 years of lies had finally ended. She pulled out the photo from Dad's truck, herself at 8, gap-toothed and grinning, protected all those years in the dark. We did it, Dad, she said to the black water. We got them all. The wind picked up, rippling the surface. For a moment, she thought she heard something. A truck's engine, a CB radio crackling, her father's voice saying her name. But it was just the wind. It was always just the wind. The funerals came in waves. First Carl, despite everything, Dolores insisted on a proper burial. Emma went, standing in the back, while Dolores wept over the man who'd murdered his best friend, and spent 20 years living with it. Only 6 people showed up. Then Pete Kowalski, who'd lasted 2 more days after the rest stopped shooting, long enough to give federal testimony from his hospital bed. His funeral had no one but Emma and Maria, 2 women honoring a killer who'd tried to make it right at the end. Morrison didn't get a funeral. His family had him cremated quietly, his empire collapsing as federal agents froze every account, seized every property. The town watched as Morrison Transport was padlocked, Morrison Development shuttered, 40 years of corruption ending in yellow tape and federal seizures. Emma was packing up her apartment, couldn't stay here anymore. Too many ghosts, when someone knocked. She opened the door to find a young woman, maybe 25, holding a baby. "You're Emma Hoffman?" "Yes." "I'm Christina Hutchins. Ben Hutchins was my grandfather." Ben Hutchins, the first trucker Morrison and Tony had killed back in 1985. "He died before I was born," Christina continued. "But my grandmother never believed it was a heart attack. She kept his things, hoping someday." She shifted the baby to her other hip. "The FBI came yesterday. Said you found evidence about what really happened? Your grandfather refused to carry drugs. They killed him for it." Christina nodded, tears starting. "Grandma died last year, still believing he was murdered, but never able to prove it. She would have been so grateful." The baby fussed. Christina bounced him gently. "That's my son," she said. "Benjamin, named after Grandpa." Emma looked at the baby, 6 months maybe, grabbing at his mother's hair. A generation that would never know the fear Morrison had spread through this town. "Your grandfather was brave," Emma said. "He said no when it would have been easier to say yes. Like your father. Like my father." After Christina left, Emma drove to the cemetery. Dad's stone had fresh flowers. Mom came every day now. But there was someone else there, Jennifer Palmer Cross, standing at another grave. Louise Palmer, 1959 to 1991. 20 years I've come here," Jennifer said. 20 years of telling her I'd get justice. Today I finally can say I did." "We did." Jennifer turned. "The FBI wants me to head the task force cleaning up what's left of Morrison's network. 3 states, hundreds of charges. You'll be good at it. They want you too. As a consultant, you know the trucking industry, the families affected." Emma touched her stomach, still flat but not for long. "I have other plans." Jennifer noticed the gesture, understood. "When?" "May. Spring, baby. Your dad would have loved being a grandfather." They stood together in the November cold, 2 daughters of murdered parents, survivors of a war they hadn't chosen. Emma's phone buzzed. Wayne, texting from the hospital where he was getting his final checkup. "Tyler's here. Wants to talk to you." She found them in the cafeteria. Tyler looked older than his 20 years, marked by his kidnapping, but his eyes were clear. "I want to help," he said. "With the FBI thing. With making sure this never happens again. It's dangerous. So was doing nothing. Grandpa Dale knew that." Grandpa Dale? Tyler had been born 2 years after Dad died, had never met him. But the family stories had made Dale Hoffman a legend. The trucker who wouldn't run, who died rather than abandon his family. "He wasn't a hero," Emma said. "He was just a man who made a choice. Sometimes that's the same thing." Wayne gripped his son's shoulder. "Your dad would be proud, Em, of all of this." That night, cleaning out the last of her apartment, Emma found the cassette player she'd bought to play Dad's tapes. There was one tape left she hadn't played, unlabeled, found in the bottom of the evidence box. She hit play, expected more evidence. Instead, Dad's voice filled the room, singing. An old country song he used to sing on long drives. She remembered being tiny, sitting in his truck's passenger seat, listening to him harmonize with the radio. Then her own voice, young and high. "Daddy, sing the star song. More than all the stars in Texas, that's how much I love you." A recording from a normal day, before Morrison, before Tony, before November 8th, 1992. Just a father and daughter singing in a truck, believing they had forever. Emma cried then, really cried, for the first time since they'd found the truck. 20 years of suppressed grief pouring out. For the father she'd lost. For the years stolen. For the little girl who'd grown up thinking she'd been abandoned. A knock at the door, her mother carrying boxes. "Thought you could use help," Linda said. Then saw Emma's face, heard the tape. Oh, honey. They sat together, listening to Dale Hoffman sing to his daughter, both of them knowing how the story ended, but treasuring this moment when it hadn't ended yet. "I remember that day," Linda said. "You'd both gone to pick up parts in Houston. Came back with that tape, so proud you'd recorded Daddy singing. I forgot we had it. You were so young, but you loved those truck rides." The tape ended. Emma rewound it, played it again. Her father's voice, preserved in magnetic ribbon, more valuable than all the insurance money in the world. "Where will you go?" Linda asked. "Austin, maybe. Somewhere new." Emma touched her stomach. "Somewhere this baby can grow up without everyone knowing the story. They'll know eventually. When they're ready. When they can understand that their grandfather was complicated, that he made mistakes but tried to fix them, that he died for something that mattered." Linda helped her pack the last boxes. In one, Emma placed everything. Dad's logbooks, the photos from his truck, the cassette tapes. Evidence of a life cut short, but not wasted. The next morning, Emma stood in the empty apartment one last time. Through the window, she could see Morrison Transport, federal agents still cataloging evidence. The quarry had been drained completely now, 3 more vehicles found, 3 more families getting closure. Her phone rang. Sheriff Garrett. "Thought you should know. Tony Castellano made a deal. Full confession in exchange for life without parole instead of death penalty. He admitted ordering Dad's murder. Everything. Your father, the others, the drug running. He's giving up names across 3 states. Garrett paused. He said something else. Said Dale was the only one who ever stood up to them without fear. Said he respected that, even as he ordered Carl to kill him. Respect didn't stop him. No, but it made him remember. For 20 years, Tony remembered your father's name. That's something." Emma didn't think it was much of something, but she understood. In their twisted world, Morrison and Tony had seen Dad as an equal, an opponent worth removing. Not just another trucker to be crushed. She drove through town one last time, past the hardware store where she'd worked, past Twin Pines Trucking's old lot, now a medical plaza, past the Texaco where Dad had bought his last coffee. At the city limits, she stopped, looked back at the town that had shaped her, broken her, remade her. The town where her father had died rather than run. Then she drove forward, toward Austin, toward the future. In the passenger seat, the ultrasound photo and Dad's picture, side by side. Past and future, loss and hope. Miles later, she passed a Peterbilt on the highway. The driver, an older man with a gray mustache like Dad's, gave her a wave. Truckers always waved. Dad had taught her that. A brotherhood of the road, he'd called it. She waved back, then noticed the small photo taped to her dashboard. Emma at 8, the one from Dad's truck. She'd put it there without thinking, carrying forward his tradition. Her phone rang through the speakers. Jennifer Palmer Cross. We found something else in Morrison's files. A life insurance policy on your father he'd taken out. Never claimed because it would have raised questions. It's yours legally. $800,000. Emma laughed, actually laughed. He insured the man he was planning to kill? Morrison insured everyone useful, in case of accidents. Give it to the other families, the Hutchins, the Garretts, the others. All of it? I have what I need. She did. The small inheritance Dad had hidden. The truth finally revealed. The baby growing inside her. The knowledge that Dale Hoffman had been exactly who she'd always believed he was. A good man who'd faced an impossible choice and chosen his family over his life. The highway stretched ahead, endless and full of possibility. Somewhere behind her, they were still pulling bodies from quarries, still arresting Morrison's network, still untangling 20 years of lies. But Emma was done looking back. She turned on the radio. Country music, something modern she didn't recognize. But then the old song came on, the one Dad used to sing. She found herself harmonizing, remembering the words, feeling him there in the cab with her, more than all the stars in Texas. The baby kicked for the first time, in tiny flutter, barely noticeable. But Emma felt it, life asserting itself, the future demanding attention. She sang louder, windows down, Texas wind whipping her hair. Dale Hoffman's daughter, carrying Dale Hoffman's grandchild, driving toward whatever came next. Not running from anything, just moving forward the way truckers do. Mile by mile, load by load, song by song. In her rearview mirror, the town disappeared. But Dad's voice stayed with her, preserved in tape and memory and DNA. A ghost, maybe, but a welcome one. The kind that helps you find your way home, even when home is somewhere you've never been. She drove on, chasing daylight, carried by 18 wheels worth of dreams. The road went on forever, just the way Dad would have wanted it.